Good morning. Thank you for staying with us on Sunrise Live this morning. And as we promised you yesterday, we are having that discussion this morning. It came up on the way it is when we were discussing the role of the opposition, what is now in our new system of government known as the minority, and whether they are doing the best that they can. Obviously, a lot of restructuring going on. I believe when we're talking about the first 100 days for the Jubilee government, it was also important for us to discuss the first 100 days of the opposition or the minority. And today we are asking you this question so that you can engage with us in this discussion. Is ODM doing enough to keep the government in check? Is ODM doing enough to keep the government in check? Please send us your comments on Twitter at KTN Kenya, at Yvonne Okwara. You can also start sending in your texts this morning. That SMS number is 8040. Remember to leave us your name and your location as we are discussing ODM under reconstruction this morning. What is the future of this party in the country? Is it all about elections? What plan do they have over the next 5 years before our next general election? And we are talking to a man who would know very well about what's happening within ODM, and he is the executive director. His name is Magerer. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
ODM, of course, undergoing, restructuring from the inside. But from your perspective, and having been in the party, obviously restructuring because of what happened during the last general election, what would you say went wrong, both external factors and within ODM, that made you lose the election?
Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me to this show. I think it's a very, very wonderful opportunity for me to interact with the Kenyans through your connection. And I just want to say that as a party, of course, after every general elections, every party goes into an election hoping that it's going to win. And for our case, ODM and the CORD coalition, we hoped that we were to form government. And of course, use the manifesto that was popular with our support base to be able to influence a change in life and lifestyle. Mm-hmm. But of course, we went into this election, be as it may, the whole intrigues about the election, the results we have mm-hmm. are what we have today. Mm-hmm. And we find ourselves in a position that we have to play the minority role. Basically, what Kenyans understand is the opposition. Mm-hmm. And our main business really now is to check the Kenyan government by Jubilee. I personally, I don't call it Jubilee government, because once it has won, or it has been declared as the legitimate government, then it's a Kenyan government, but being run by Jubilee proponents. So we are going to play our role. We went into this election, and as a party, we have come out, and there are issues that we think that going forward we need to address, so that because we have not given up our quest for accessing the state power, so that we can be able to play a government role and see whether we could implement our ideology, our thoughts, to ensure that the Kenyan life moves on. So perhaps that is what informs the restructuring, and basically also with the advent of the funding by government on political parties, mm-hmm. Then that assures our party supporters and members, that the party has more role than just basically what many people used to think before, that it's just a vehicle to get into parliament and maybe win state power and things like that. So we are finding it as ODM and as principal member of CORD coalition that we still have a bigger role to ensure that we check the government of the day, to ensure that, alongside its manifesto, while they try to implement the manifesto, they also don't do so by being extravagant, mm-hmm. or hurting Kenyans, or implementing their will. Governance is about the will of the people, mm-hmm. and that's what our constitution says.
Okay, all right. And we'll get to just how to make sure that the government delivers on its pledges. But still, what do you think were the external and internal factors that may have led to ODM not carrying the day?
I want to say externally, of course, we had we still have issues surrounding elections in Kenya. We talk about the election laws, you know, its omissions and the commission's failure to play by the rules by, you know, our partners and those state officers who have been given the role to be able to arbitrate or, you know, oversee the elections. If you look at the Political Parties Act and also the Election Act, and a number of raft of rules that were approved either by the constitutional body IBC or even our own constitution, much of it was not adhered to in the run-up to elections. For example, you know, the discipline within the political parties was not you know, adhered to as provided for within the Act and also all other laws. The registrar of political parties interestingly found itself you know, being a playboy of electoral commission, whereas the constitution and the law clearly defines the role. Who supervises political parties, for example? It is the political parties registrar. But you find the registrar of political parties still operating under IEBC. Yet IEBC has a role to supervise elections. That's basically its role. It has no role to police political parties. That role was either abdicated by the registrar of political parties by design or by government not being able to support the office of the registrar of political parties. For example, up to now, we don't have a substantive registrar of political parties. Therefore, the person operating there, Miss Lucy, is just operating there on an acting capacity. So, and you know what that means. When you are on acting, that means you don't get a budget, you don't get a team that is able to implement the programs the way it is envisaged. So that affects the play in terms of whether we are going to get a good result or not. Electoral Commission, on the other hand, there are some roles which it played. For example, moving the election dates and deadlines for political parties, you know, in terms of movement, in terms of finalizing on their lists for, you know, for the candidates, allowing even political parties to clash on a final day. You know, you remember the 18th of March, 18th of January, I think, where all political parties held primaries in the same place and seeking an approval by the same people. That was just tolerating confusion. And during that confusion, now you find, you know, a lot of people who are principally in a certain party and they lose because of, you know, either they are not popular or maybe the election was not conducted properly. They still cross over and appear again in complete flouting of the rules of the game. The other factor which also played is there is a, you know, a state role, the incumbency for that matter. For us, it's a very, very big concern because some of the state agencies seem to be too much into electioneering and not allowing Kenyans to have a free hand in, you know, in coming up with the people or the person or the party that they think they are popular in. So you find a lot of underground things. That's the external issues that play. Now, of course, the internal issue, we had a very, very big weakness in how we also conducted ourselves in the nominations. And the single big thing about ODM and to an extension code was that we were not very good in managing our nominations, and that informs the reason why we are now beginning to restructure the party in the wake of some of those reasons. And we are saying, should we get into a nomination where we don't even know who is participating? Or should we deal with the membership that has been with us all along to be able to ease that kind of
all right. And speaking of the nomination process and restructuring, and I guess that is probably coming up now, you know, that an election is coming up, and there's that push and pull between the young tucks, as they're called, and the old guard. And we are hearing word that the young tucks feel like it's time for them to take over leadership, and that perhaps the old guard will not allow it, and they're still clinging to power. What do you have to say about that?
Yvonne, I would say that is that's a good thing. As a chief executive of a political party, that's a very, you know, popular in support and all that kind of thing. I'm a happy man when I see people clamoring for positions. That tells you actually the party is still the party to watch. However, you know, in our calendar and the provision within our own constitution, the ODM constitution, is that every 5 years we do an election that is normally carried out at the National Delegates Conference to be able to, you know, to set the new set of leaders, whether we are renewing some mandates or we are, you know, changing over others and things like that. It's something that is going to come. What we are doing now is people are preparing as per the timeline. By the end of the year, hopefully, latest maybe, you know, early next year, we must have our National Delegates Convention purposely convened to do, you know, to elect the new officials, because the 5-year term of the previous officials has expired. What we intend to do in between now and that time, of course, is to try and see whether it is possible to fill some of the positions which were left by, of course, you know, people left our party to go and join other parties. Others have just left into oblivion, things like that. And we need to have those officials on interim capacity, filling up the places for the party to be able to move forward. So the young tax is a good thing. I'm also part of the young tax, but the push within ODM about the young tax really is a strategy by the young people to try and gain control of the party, which is a good thing. But ideally, it's not a war between the old generation and the young generation, because to me, age is just a transition. So always you are young today, but you are going to be older tomorrow. So I want to encourage that people go out there, you know, campaign, but not necessarily pitting the old against the young, because then that would be missing the point. All right, okay.
And I guess this issue of age comes up primarily because ODM was beaten by a party predominantly run by young people. When you look at TNA, the chairman of the party was barely 26 at the time, and it was pushed by a lot of young people who were behind that party, and that at that time it was TNA was digital, ODM and CORD was analog. Do you think there's a need to shed this image? Is this something that you're working towards?
I think the issue about digital and analog was merely a brand that was being created to try and...
but do you think it stuck, though?
And it stuck, though, because again, you see, it resonated every time that they portrayed themselves to mean that young means digital and old is analog. Of course, which, you know, is not true. Some of these young people are even more analog because most of them, they cannot even use these devices we are talking about. So it's just a mere brand that was created. But we of course, we say we take, you know, we recognize the fact that the changing political trends within our country are, you know, have affected even our own performance. But Makiu, if you look at going by the polling results that were released, you know, despite, of course, the whole lullabaloo about numbers not being correct, and you know, we shall still be going ahead to see whether who was right, and we hope that we shall be vindicated. Of course, after going to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Jubilee, as a party we are bound by the Constitution to accept the ruling of the Supreme Court. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we agree with it. It does not necessarily mean, but we accept, because that's what the Constitution says. We don't have any other court that we can now seek redress. But we have issues about those numbers. So sometimes giving credit to a team like Jubilee, as in, numbers, may not be so correct until we get to settle on those figures.
Hasn't that been settled, though, by the Supreme Court?
Remember, Yvonne, even up to now, the matter was settled in terms of who becomes the president. But in terms of the numbers, even IBC, the figures they gave the other day, you saw what they did in Bunge. Whatever they gave, we are analyzing them. We will give our feedback at an opportune time. And the reason why I'm saying we hope we shall be vindicated is because we see some loopholes. So we are not saying that we are not accepting what the situation as it is now, but we are only saying we have moved on, but it does not mean we don't put things straight to Kenyans where we feel that there were issues about numbers.
Okay.
So the analog digital thing does not necessarily mean very true. If you look at the chairman, for example, of one of the Jubilee partners, URP, was Ole Kaparo. I don't know how young Ole Kaparo is. I mean, if you compare him with our Henry Kosgei, and you see that kind of thing. So those are the situations which we need to look at it in terms of as a whole, holistically.
Be that as it may, that was an image that stuck in people's minds, that ODM had, old people, and we remember even during the nomination process, Anyang' Nyong'o, James Orengo, a lot of these people who are associated with the second liberation, but for whom perhaps 70% of Kenya's population, which is predominantly young, perhaps do not relate with what happened in 1992 and the push for multipartism. And even though you say it may not necessarily be true, this is an image that's stuck in people's minds. To which I ask you now, what is the new face of ODM going to be as you go into the National Delegates Conference, as you pick new leaders? What is that you want people to associate ODM with? Because regardless of how you put it, a lot of people still associate ODM with older people, analog, and the old way of doing things, particularly now because Jubilee is in power.
Is in power.
Yeah.
Even what we are going to do is, as a party, we allow our people to pick their leaders. That's why we are democratic. That's why we say it's Orange Democratic Movement. We cannot really push, a thinking to our own people and say, you see, the other side is looking younger, let's look younger. If the National Delegates Conference, for any reason, decide that we are going to change the face of leadership in a certain manner, they have all the right to do so, because that is their constitutional right in accordance to what our party has agreed upon. I want to encourage, however, many young people to come into the party, go for positions, and try. And that's why I said we recognize the changing political trends. When I say that, it means we are not going to get stuck in the past. We are moving on. And we know that which positions need to be strengthened. Others, they have become even redundant. And for example, if you look at the constitution of ODM now, as approved by the National Delegates Conference in December 2012, a lot of things have been changed. You'll find that previously we had a party leader and then 2 deputy party leaders. But right now, it is only a party leader, 1 deputy party leader, chairman, and those kind of things. The NEC, the entire National Executive Committee, has been reduced from 56 to 27. You get the point? So there is definitely going to be a shift in the way things are going to be run within our party in a short while, and we are preparing for that. Of course, we know other political parties, are doing their own things, but we are also going to play our own game, because at the end of the day, it's not just about age. It is the idea and ideology that the party is advancing. It is what we stand for. And as I told you, in the numbers, we want to see how many young people actually voted for ODM and how many young people voted for the other side. So that for us to be able to discuss constructively and say that we were analog or the other side was digital, it's on the basis of those numbers. And we are doing a very, very serious analysis of those numbers now, age brackets, looking at the gender, whether women, how many women support the party and all those kind of things. We are going now to use that information to be able to reorient the party as we move forward to ensure that the party is relevant to the voters of the day.
Okay. We're talking a lot about numbers and what happened in the previous election. I want to know what the plan for ODM is in the next 5 years. There is a government in place. We know traditionally the role of opposition. What plans are there to make sure that we see ODM telling the government, this is not what you're supposed to be doing. You need to go in this direction. For example, we're even discussing yesterday, we haven't had a substantive statement from ODM or indeed CORD regarding the JKIA fire, regarding several events that took place even before that fire. We haven't seen some sort of semblance of a shadow cabinet in terms of who will be the one that will keep Kaimenyi in check, who will be the one that will keep Anne Waiguru in check, Kambi Kazungu in check. But we seem to see ODM, which may not be a bad thing, but still stuck in this last election, the numbers, who had what numbers, as opposed to now going forward, because government is already running and working and moving in place. So what is that plan? Would we see a shadow cabinet? Would we see ODM coming out and saying substantively, this is what we think about the teacher strike, this is what we think about security or insecurity, this is what we think about the Senate versus... We don't seem to see that one voice that speaks out on these matters. When will that happen?
I think that is going to happen. The idea that we were a bit, not reacting to that was basically any issue that we take on the Jubilee government. There is a feeling that ODM is trying to portray the government badly, to sabotage the same government and all those things. So hence this restructuring we are talking about. Now at the Secretariat, which is going to play a very key role in terms of probably communicating the positions of the party and the coalition. I have created about 4 directorates under me that ostensibly takes care of matters across the board. I have a directorate on finance and management because, as I told you, parties now receive money from exchequer, and we got to be a party that can utilize funds and manage the funds and account for those funds in a certain manner. So we have that directorate on finance. We have directorate on operations, which basically deals with what the party does in terms of programming, in terms of the county coordination, in terms of even resource mobilization. Then we have this directorate on strategy, policy and political analysis, which basically reviews, the stand of the party, the strategy that the party takes in relation with the Jubilee implementation of its own manifesto, and also taking into consideration what the Constitution says and what we as CORD would want. So we have created that department. It will include a research team. For the first time, we are going to have active researchers. We are going to deal with our role as in legal, what our role is vis-a-vis, legal issues, lawmaking. What would CORD want to do to ensure that services are given correctly to the people?
Allow me to
I'm not finished. Finally, we have an area that deals with the membership. This membership is about what exactly is our member base, support base. How are we going to retain these numbers? What do they want so that we are able to influence and push the government of the day to be able to achieve some of those gains? For your information, Jubilee government will not take all the credit to itself. There are things we are going to push it for our people. And when they come, we take credit because we have pushed government.
All right, allow me to... So when will this happen?
It's already happening. And
when would we, do we need to have all these structures that you're talking about for for example, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga to have a stand on something regarding, the issues that we have? Because it's all well and good, the structures that you talk about, but is that necessary for the ODM members of Parliament to give their stand on an issue?
You see, this thing of reacting to situations without so much information about it sometimes has also not left us very, in a good picture. So we just want to do something that is backed up with information. And you have said it correctly, that is it just about criticizing the government? No, we are criticizing and offering a way out in terms of whether solutions are going to be, realizable. And we need this backup for our leader, our party leader, to be able to perform well. He has performed well. He's a very intelligent gentleman. He's run the state, so he knows it. But we are only saying we are now backing him up fully, so that he does not look like the way a lot of people have portrayed him, that is the only single Kenyan who thinks that things are not done the right way. It's not true.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. Allow me to put it this way, though, because you say you need the structures in place before you can actively comment and give all of these alternative solutions to the issues we have in this country. However, one thing that ODM has been very clear about is former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's treatment. While, of course, that is understandable in the way in which it happened, accessing the VIP lounge, the number of vehicles that he can receive and his bodyguards. Did you have the structures in place that enabled comment? Because we saw a lot of vibrant comment on this issue, but we don't see the same vibrancy on issues that affect Kenyans. So many believe that when it's an issue that's affecting the former Prime Minister, ODM rallies around him and makes comment on that. When it's an issue that affects Kenyans, we don't see the same backing and the same vigor with an issue that affects Kenyans. For example, does ODM have a stand on the JKI fire and how it was managed?
Okay, let me start by correcting an impression that you're trying to create here. One is that look at the issue of devolution. Who has made the most noise?
Bomet governor.
No. He's just joining in the ride. Bomet governor is on the other side. I'm telling you, as a party, we started making noise on devolution from the first day. Remember, we have said that some people were appointed by the previous government, even when the High Court had ruled out. Of course, the High Court now, I mean the whatever. Courts of Appeal has rescinded and reinstated. But that doesn't mean that that's the position of the law. We have been on toes in terms of trying to look at issues that affect our own people. When you touch about the privileges that the former Prime Minister needed to have, you see some of the way the proponents of Jubilee is trying to do is to kind of create a humiliation, because they think that if they hit the head, then the others will run scattering. But that's not the position. We know our rights. We are saying we know our rights, and it's not about it's not love for Jubilee or Jubilee to love us to be able to grant those rights to our leaders. I mean, by virtue of being a co-principal in the previous government, Right Honorable Odinga deserves a better treatment. Everyone knows that. Even both Uhuru and Ruto, when they had left government, they were still holding on to state machineries and all those things. No, everybody knew that, but they had a position, and there is a way in which you can withdraw if the services were attached to a certain position. But for the position of the Prime Minister, former Prime Minister, it is more than obvious that he is a state person, and those things are granted by law, not really by personality within the current government. Okay. So it's not right that we have not reacted. Our position on the fire at Jomo Kenyatta, definitely, I told you, we will not just comment. A fire is not something you can just talk. We know our leaders are going to issue statement on the same. After all those things have been done, and now we have a position as a party to be able to communicate to Kenyans, so that we also don't contradict, and maybe we don't communicate something that can be not very nice. Remember, JKI is about our international outlook. Right. How does it affect?
Okay. So when will we see this statement?
Anytime soon. Anytime.
soon?
Anytime soon. I don't think this week will end.
Okay.
And it will be comprehensive.
Okay, regarding that position.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the personality that is former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. It is well known he has a very strong personality, and in some cases his name becomes synonymous with the party. And many people say Raila is ODM and ODM is Raila. Let me read you a text message that we're getting from one of our viewers here. He says, ODM is all about Raila Odinga. He seems to face no opposition because, you know, he has a fanatic fan base. And they say Jubilee is goofing big time, but ODM is also stuck in a time warp. How do you propose to be able to separate the two? He is a strong personality, no doubt, but many people then think because of that strong personality, that, you know, the party is there principally as a vehicle for him for 2017, which he commented on over the weekend.
I want to say that it is true. Raila, the brand, is a very strong brand as a personality. But also, over time, remember, ODM is the only party that has transited 2 elections being the same party. If you look at all these other parties, they are just, they keep recreating. For example, all those parties, they were parties which were not existing before election. They just existed at the point of election.
But they did win the election.
But I've already communicated to you why they did well. And you have asked me what circumstances, and I've said it. I don't want to go into that again. But I'm saying, look at ODM. We have about 96 members in the National Assembly. We have about, I think, 12 members of the Senate. In terms of governors, we are the leading party with about 17 elected governors. Of course, the CORD coalition has the better part of the country in terms of governance. Look at the big cities of Kenya. Start with Nairobi. It's under ODM. CORD ODM. Mombasa, CORD ODM. Look at Kisumu, the same. And out of the 8 cities which were provincial headquarters, about 5 are under ODM code. That tells you that it's not a small-time party. And the fact that it has come from where it has come from and moving, it means clearly that, yes, we have a very strong personality in terms of a leader, but also we have a support base that understands the ideals and what the party stands for. As, of course, proposed by the party leader. Party leader is always a leader, so he leads and many other people join him. So equally, the party is strong and our party leader is even stronger.
How do you see ODM post Raila Odinga?
It will still be a very strong party. We have a lot of capable, talent within our own party. For reasons that a number of people always want to say who after Odinga who. Why do you want to know our next plan? We as a party, we have structures, and if you look at our constitution, it will tell you there's a big pool in which we can pick up a personality that will be able to steer the party forward. We look at a person who has lived with the party, loyal to the party and its ideals, not personality. And there's a difference. A lot of people think that the loyalty we are talking about is loyalty to Odinga, but we also have people who are more loyal to the party itself in terms of what the party thinks and how it envisages life. So I think post-Raila, ODM is still going to be very strong. It will even be stronger because as I said, Odinga has now given birth to so many Odingas within the party, and there are many people that can be able to take after him.
All right. When we talk about the elections and moving forward from that, how do you think you'll be able to play that role when you continue to say regarding the Supreme Court that perhaps you don't agree with it, but you're still looking into the numbers and you're still going to give a comprehensive report?
I have been in Parliament, and I know, the court relies on the laws that are there. So even if they see something that maybe principally would have thought otherwise, if there is no law that, for example, you have broken or you have gone against, there is no basis for them to rule against you on principle that they look at a law that is existing and make a judgment based on that law. So the weakness really is not on the Supreme Court per se. It is also in our own legislations. And remember, Yvonne, that it's only like 2.5 years since we promulgated the new constitution. And we had a quick run to try and establish legislations to make sure that the constitution was implementable. And we have done quite a bit in the last parliament. They are still going on to do it now. But now, having tested some of them, we have already seen that there are some loopholes within those particular laws, and we need to rectify, and that forms part of our legislative agenda as ODM code.
That being said, because the election was quite close, we had a huge number of people voting for Uhuru Kenyatta and a huge number of people equally voting for Raila Odinga. Do you think that to heal that rift, you might want to accept that ruling from the court and move on, because we still seem stuck in the numbers?
We have accepted the rule. We have accepted the ruling, and that is why we took our position as minority. Remember, we have appointed a minority leader in parliament and deputy minority leader. Same case in Senate. So we have accepted, unless there is a way you want us to say we have accepted. But in as far as we are concerned, we have accepted the position. We are learning, though, from what really happened and trying to use the opportunity that we have now to try and close those loopholes within the laws that enabled some of those areas to come up. We have you have seen the president Uhuru Kenyatta attending a burial in Nyanza, where they met with our party leader Odinga, and that's his base in terms of support, and it was cordial. I don't think there is any problem between.
But we've seen some differences in Kisii.
Now, when the membership, the populace, are the ones reacting, it doesn't mean that it's the leadership which does the leadership
not have any say on the following?
Have you been able to address any huge gathering? I don't know. But sometimes you are in a platform, and the people, the way they want things, you cannot control, even if you are who. I can tell you that I'm a politician, and we have, I've experienced such situations.
Could it be sentiments that are within the party that are driving and fueling that sort of action that we saw in Kisii?
No.
Because you said that you have quite a huge fan base and loyalty to the party, and you
Correct.
said not necessarily to the individual that is Raila Odinga. Is this a sentiment that's within the party that was manifesting itself with what happened in Kisii?
Yeah, of course, they have a right to disapprove what they feel it doesn't belong to them.
And disapprove in what way?
Whichever the way they can do, because some of them can go to media, some of them can shout around, some of them can just scream, those kind of things. But really, it would be wrong to imagine that as a leader I have a switch on and off on our own support base in terms of their emotions and their reactions. It's not possible.
All right, fine. Let's talk about.
But we always guide them that let's listen to everybody. Let's take everybody's views.
Let's talk about, yes, before you say perhaps you have no control, but after that, what steps were taken in Kisii, perhaps speaking to Kisii leaders and saying this is not the way to go, or this is the way we express our displeasure with the government of the day? Was that done?
We have already done through our party structures, and even most of the leaders in Kisii are code leaders, so they have been talking to their people. Even as we have, those of us who have gone to media, we have clearly said that this is not what we were telling our people to say, but we recognize the fact that sometimes they are displeased, and funny enough, some channels can be used, and some of it may not be very nice, but we are guiding them. Right. We have a responsibility as good leaders of this country to be able to deal with our citizenry as well.
Kalonzo Musyoka has been in the press calling for all the parties in the Code Coalition to coalesce, particularly the smaller ones, to dissolve and, so this can become one. What are your thoughts on that, and will the minority voice be stifled within the coalition?
What we are doing, of course, the Code Coalition has 14 member parties. And we think the same. Remember, we lost quite a number of opportunities in terms of elective seats and all that other parties, or mainly our rival coalitions, that is the Amani and Jubilee, because we could not agree to field one candidate. So perhaps as a deputy leader of the CORD coalition, Kalonzo Musyoka is giving some wise consent, which we think within our own parties, because we have an operational council within the CORD parties, and we cannot rule out that maybe sometime in future we can either, fuse into one, or still work under one very strong coalition, but with better rules to manage and engage in terms of if we are faced with a situation like we were faced in 2013.
Okay, here's one from our viewer who says, please comment on Governor Oparanya's threat to quit ODM because the party has ignored Western in its leadership.
Yeah, I found that a bit interesting, because Oparanya is a very senior member of our party. He was a cabinet minister through ODM. He's now a governor through ODM. And he should come out clean to say what is it that the party has not done for him. The party has supported Kakamega very well. In fact, one of my deputies, his name is Nabina Bwera, who is currently his personal assistant, has been appointed to the secretariat at that level to head the strategy, policy and political analysis docket, the one I've told you. So I've not understood what Oparanya exactly meant, but we are in talks, and maybe we need to listen to him. Maybe there is one or two areas that is not pleased, but we'll address it.
All right.
Yeah.
Former Prime Minister Raila Odinga is not ruling out running for president in 2017, and some say this is presumptive. Will he be challenged for that seat?
We play by rules, and we are a democratic movement. The National Delegates Conference that is specially convened to produce a presidential candidate is the one which has the final say on whether Mr. Odinga will finally get the nod, or any other person within the party. But Honorable Raila Odinga has a right to run. He has a right like any other member. He has an opportunity. If the party decides, then so be it. Yeah. So there is nothing wrong with him feeling that he's strong enough to run again. But the final say rests within that delegates conference. And like last time, you saw people coming out to challenge, and because they could not be able to give that strong challenge, then they turned that weakness in terms of them fielding against Raila Odinga to become a marketing gimmick on the other side, because everyone was running away saying that Odinga cannot be challenged. And no one really...
But then is that due to the perception that,
it's a perception. It's a perception.
Perception, but one that definitely needs to be rectified or changed in one way.
What do you need to change?
When we were talking about, when we were talking about Raila being an imposing figure, which he is due to his very strong personality. Yes, you may say it's a perception, but it's one that's been created in the minds of party members, some party members, in the minds of Kenyans, that, Raila is up there and he cannot be challenged for that seat. And so that could be the reason why, in fact, some people left the party,
Two things.
Including Ruto himself.
Two things. One, Raila Odinga, as I said, is a party leader. This party plays by the rules. The rules are very clear. As I've told you, Delegates Conference is going to produce that candidate. If you look at our competitors, William Ruto, for example, he competed against who in URP? Uhuru Kenyatta. He competed against who in TNA.
To be fair, though, because you say you're a democratic
just a moment.
Don't compare yourself to the others, but tell us why ODM will be different.
No. ODM is, the reason why I'm saying ODM is different is because our constitution is very clear that even now we cannot talk about candidates for the next general election. It is that NDC, which is normally a special NDC, convened for only one purpose, to produce that leader. And everyone within who can fulfill the requirements of our party and maybe coalition at that time will be the people who will contest. If they don't come out, what do you want us to do? What do you want Mr. Odinga to do? To run away because he has no competition? No, he's gonna go for it. But I was just saying, even these people who ran was ostensibly because there was no room in ODM. They chose parties where they expected least competitions.
Okay, but to be fair, today we're not talking about TNA or URP. We're talking about ODM.
But we are playing within.
That is fine, but to compare yourself to others who are doing the same thing isn't really an answer as to why that's happening in ODM.
I was only bringing some background information, but I've said our law is very clear. Who knows, maybe even any other person, maybe even Kalonzo will run against Raila Odinga in 2017. Or maybe even Raila Odinga will make a decision. You know, you never know. But all we are saying, as a party, it is the delegates' convention. That is the one which gives us a candidate.
Okay, all right. Let's wind up our discussion this morning by talking about what we hope to see from ODM. Let's reiterate that again. We still haven't seen a shadow cabinet. We still aren't seeing those substantive statements which you're telling us we will see. But I think, you know, when we say soon, Kenyans would like to know, when are you going to start talking about my bread and butter issues? It is all well and good and agreed with what you're saying about the former Prime Minister's rights and privileges under the law. But I think for more Kenyans, let's be honest, they're less concerned about how many cars he is driving, because many Kenyans aren't driving their own vehicles. But when will Kenyans start to see ODM being the party that says, look, the VAT bill says this, we have alternative solutions. This is where you can raise that 10 billion that you're looking for. The JKI fire was handled in this way. As ODM, this is what we're saying is a way you can handle that. We're having issues with the National Police Service Commission and the Inspector General. This is what we are proposing. When are Kenyans going to see that discussion that centers around them and not around the party members and the privileges that they deserve?
Yeah, I agree with you. Maybe we have not been able to be clear enough in terms of that kind of communication. But if you look at our members of parliament, which currently is the main talking organ of the party within either Senate or the National Assembly, we have been able to give some communication. But as I've already told you, that now as a party and a coalition, we are going to be having substantive statements which are going to be clear in terms of how we view things. Even they could be coming in terms of paid up adverts or those kind of things. Because sometimes when you do it as news, you media people, you are very good sometimes. You can just pick one item and zero in on that one, and it covers really the entire message. It loses the entire message. So we are going to be we are concerned about that, because we have hired media and a PR person who is also helping us to be able to link up with you people in the media and see whether we can utilize the opportunities that we have with you to give those communications to our support base. But we are up to the task, and we shall be giving those alternatives.
How will ODM be stronger in the days going forward under your leadership? Perhaps if you can give us 2 to 3 things that we can expect to see changes in ODM that will benefit the Kenyan people.
One is we want to activate the grassroots, because really that is where the people are. We are also going to devolve our secretariat functions from Nairobi to 47 counties. We have currently about 30 offices across the country, but we want to open up all the 47 and operationalize them and have programs within each county that are able to generate some activity within those counties. This relation, already we have some lined up activities. For example, we have meetings that we shall be doing in the upper, can I say Middle East, the Meru Embu area, then we go to Kisumu, we go to Mombasa, things like that. And we shall be doing a lot of engagements with our own supporters and nearly, open, it's open really to Kenyan citizens, so that we are able to share as a minority party what is it that we feel the government should be able to do and is not doing, and we are saying that as we prepare also to take over government, we shall do it better. So that communication is going to be there. But the main function is devolve the activities to the counties. That is when you'll be able to reach out to our grassroots. All right.
And finally, if you were to describe ODM now in one sentence, the personality, the character of the party, what would you say? ODM
is a social democratic movement which aims at seeing that every Kenyan has lives a decent life, liberal and a just life so that you are free within your own country, and you are not only free, but in terms of getting the most essential services, you can be able to get those essential services and feel protected by your own country and feel proud that you are in this country.
Okay, we will be looking forward to some of those substantive statements because I think that is what is on the mind of a lot of Kenyans in terms of providing alternative leadership and solutions. When is that NDC?
Hopefully towards the end of the year. We have 2 other meetings before we have the NEC. That's going to be this month, and then we set the date of National Governing Council. By law, National Governing Council is the one that fixes the date for the delegates conference. But the 2 meetings have already been scheduled. So it's only the second meeting is the one which is going to now to give us the exact date of NDC, which should be, as I told you, towards the end of the year or early. It cannot go beyond January because the term of the current office bearers ends exactly in December.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Been speaking to Magerer Langatu, who's the Executive Director of the Orange Democratic Movement in the country, on the plans that ODM has towards restructuring itself and providing alternative leadership and solutions in the country. That's all for now. Thank you for your feedback. We'll definitely be taking a look at it towards the end of the show. I think we can take a look at some of those now if we have some time. No, I'm told we don't have enough time. So I will take a look at your tweets and your SMSs towards the end of the show regarding ODM and whether you think they are providing the solutions that you require as an ordinary Kenyan. Don't go too far because remember Inspirational Tuesdays? We've got a little bit of that after the break. Stay with us.